Are you ready?
You're watching the M2J2 project, and this is KAIJU Month.
What up, Crangrape Nation? Welcome to KAIJU Month. This month, in anticipation for Godzilla vs. Kong, we're going to be taking a look at some rare and obscure kaiju films. Speaking of Godzilla vs. Kong, let me know in the comments below who you think is going to win between those two in the movie. I think it's going to be Godzilla. What do you guys think? Tear me apart in the comments below because I am a massive King Kong hater. Speaking of King Kong, we are starting off with a King Kong film from 1964. Legendary director Ishiro, director of the original Godzilla, gives us King Kong Escapes. And this is a weird one, but then again, I could say that about literally every movie I'm going to review this month. Before we begin, I just want to note something. Up until a few years ago, I was under the impression that I had seen this film in my childhood as a film on the CW that they played on the weekends. I learned around 2016 that that film was actually a different movie called King Kong Lives, which is a sequel to the 1976 American remake of King Kong. Completely different movie, and everything except the Kong character is completely different between these two movies. I don't know if anyone else made this mistake, but I did, and it led to me learning that this really cool new movie exists. So it's really cool when you learn stuff like that, so I wanted to put that in the beginning of the video in case anybody else had made this mistake and been under the impression that these two movies were one and the same, or that only one of them existed, because that's what I thought. I thought when somebody would say King Kong Escapes, I just thought, oh, that's the sequel to the 1976 American remake, and then when somebody would say King Kong Lives, I'd be like, that's the sequel to the 1976 American remake. I didn't know that Toho made their own King Kong movie. Anyway, let's slap on into the review. King Kong Escapes is a 1964 Toho production, Toho, of course, being the production company that brought us Godzilla and all his subsequent related kaiju films. This film serves not as any follow-up to the original Marion C. Cooper Kong film, but as an adaptation of the King Kong Show, a cartoon series developed by Rankin Bass, the famed creators of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, Here Comes Peter Cottontail, and all your beloved childhood holiday classics. With that in mind, you'll recognize the voice of Paul Frees, who plays Santa Claus in many of the Rankin Bass specials, as the voice of the villain Doctor Who. Yes, Doctor Who, the original, more popular British Doctor Who, had been airing for 4 years at this point, but I'm guessing the writers either just did not know of the character's existence or thought the name was just cool and wanted to include it in the movie, even though this character is not actually Doctor Who, obviously. But just look at this guy. He is one of the most cliché-looking movie villains I have ever seen. Doctor Who's plan is to mine a radioactive element called Element X. Always with X in these goddamn movies. His plan is to mine this radioactive element in the North Pole with, get this, you've heard of Mechagodzilla, right? Doctor Who has
Mechanical.
a giant, evil robot version of King Kong built specifically to mine caves in the North Pole. Anyway, that doesn't matter because Mechanicong doesn't work. That's right. The radiation in Element X fucks up his brainwaves and causes him to shut down. So what does Doctor Who do? He'll just get the real Kong under some type of hypnosis device and get him to mine for the Element X. However, according to the opening scene of this movie, Kong's existence isn't common knowledge. Doctor Who just built a giant robot that looked like this mythical creature. So let's take a step back and look at this from a real-life angle. Let's say this happens in real life. There is a man who built a giant robot that he was inspired to create because of this mythical creature to mine this radioactive element in the North Pole. Said giant robot does not work, and he says, we'll just get the real one. That's like if the Toys for Tots truck drove off a bridge and somebody said, well, it's a good thing Santa Claus is bringing all those kids presents. Except apparently not, because Kong is real and the scientists from the first scene discover him on Mondo Island. Here we see Kong do battle with the Gorosaurus, a kaiju who I think is pretty underappreciated. Kong finishes him off the same way he does the T-Rex in the original, and in every fucking Kong movie ever made, by ripping his jaw open. I'll admit this is a pretty cool finishing move, and Gorosaurus' lifeless eyes staring into the camera as foam oozes out of his lifeless mouth is pretty disturbing. But Kong does this in literally every single movie. And I get that it's like the finishing move of King Kong or whatever, but Jesus Christ, have some variety. Anyway, this is made in the 60s, so I guess it wasn't a cliche yet, but anyway, I just thought that was strange to note, and that they included it in this movie was pretty weird. They also included it in King Kong vs. Godzilla, another Toho film which came out a few years earlier. Gorosaurus, presumably a different Gorosaurus, would go on to briefly appear in Destroy All Monsters a few years later, but he hasn't really made any appearances since, which is a shame because I think he's pretty cool. I mean, I know he's not at the top of anybody's favorite kaiju list, but I mean, I like him. Kong also fights a sea serpent, but that's not nearly as notable as the Gorosaurus fight, and I also might not have been paying attention at the part with the sea serpent. Oh no! Doctor Who has made his way to Mondo Island and has hypnotized King Kong using a radio device. Sort of like what Apple's gonna do to all the people who bought AirPods. I have to say, those Godzilla vs. Charles Barkley ads can get pretty ridiculous and offer some kind of insane visuals, but seeing King Kong with regular-sized headphones on in a for-real movie is just... it's just something else. So Doctor Who gets King Kong to mine in the cave using the radio hypnosis device thing. Except it doesn't work. Again, because of the radiation. You'd think he'd take that into consideration the second time, but whatever. And so, as such, King Kong escapes. He escapes to Tokyo, naturally, where he is greeted by the military. This is when Doctor Who finally sends Mechanicong after him. I just want to note at this point, it's pretty hilarious that the fact that Mechanicong is there is just a coincidence. He was not built to fight King Kong like you would expect him to be. He was built to mine in a cave. This is not a fighting robot gorilla. So, when Kong sees Mechanicong, as anybody would when they see a robot version of themselves in public, he tries to fight him. And of course, they needed King Kong to climb something, because he does that in every fucking movie. So he climbs this tower thing in Tokyo. I noticed that a lot of Kong movies seem to fall into this trope of mirroring each other. There always needs to be some kind of female love interest. There always needs to be him climbing something at the end. He usually falls off. But you gotta wonder, let's just pretend for a second that this is the same King Kong in every movie. In every movie that could possibly share a continuity that isn't a remake or anything, this is the same King Kong. He doesn't learn anything each time he gets attached to a human girl. What's your end game here, Kong? Are you gonna marry this girl? You're gonna get her pregnant? You're gonna move in together? Like, think this through. Come on! And of course, that's usually what gets him killed. This gorilla would die for a crumb of pussy. But not this time. I just licked the microphone. But not this time. Kong actually defeats Mechanicong and ends the movie swimming out triumphantly to the sea, as monkeys do. By all accounts, King Kong Escapes is canon to the mainline Showa Godzilla continuity, as much as anything could be canon in the Showa continuity. However, aside from 1964's King Kong vs. Godzilla and this film, King Kong has not made any other appearances in Toho properties. However, Gorosaurus, as mentioned, did appear in Destroy All Monsters. Mechanicong was actually planned to appear in another film during the Heisei series in the 90s, but someone at Toho was smart enough to say that that movie probably should not have gotten made. Imagine that following up Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. Christ. Still, with rumors of Mechagodzilla's appearance being all but confirmed for Kong vs. Godzilla, one can only hold out hope that Mechanicong will follow suit. Smash that motherfucking like button, hit that motherfucking subscribe button, and until next time, Gucci.
人が作ったロボットだけどジェッジャガやったねジャガ行け行け平和を守るためみんなも驚く勇気を見せるゴジラとジャガ